Right.
Hello, and
Hi.
welcome to another Arty Class weekly webinar hosted by Shopkeep Arty, the platform helping anyone and everyone to learn new things, improve their art, and have fun creating. I'm John. And today we'll be hosting professional oil painter Paul Alcock. Paul was Sky Landscape Artist of the Year semi-finalist and studied fine art at the Camberwell School of Art in the UK. Since he lives on the Thames estuary and painting from direct observation as much as possible, Paul's oil paintings tend to display a lively response to his surroundings and a celebration of being alive, as he puts it. He teaches both in workshops and on painting holidays and has taken part in a huge number of exhibitions. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what we can produce today. So let me press our grandly named travelometer and let's go and say hello to Paul. So many buttons to press. I forgot the plane noise, but anyway, we got there eventually. Here we go. We're zooming in.
Hey,
To planet Earth. Here we go.
that's great.
Hello, Paul. How are
Hi,
you?
good to see you.
Yeah,
I can
you
just
too.
see where I've been painting this morning on that,
Oh, could you? Oh,
just
that's
around the
quite
corner.
funny.
Yeah,
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 that's quite funny. So I couldn't help but notice the adult community college just round the corner from you because, funnily enough, they use our Shopkeep Easy platform for their art students to showcase work in a virtual art gallery that people can purchase and raise money for them and the college. It's certainly a small world, isn't it? It really is.
yeah, indeed.
Anyhow, I'm really looking forward to today, and I'll come back to you whilst you're setting up.
Okay,
So,
yeah.
so while Paul gets ready, I can't resist a quick shout out to Roz Parker and her great team at SAC. I hope things are all going well for you all. These free weekly paint along Zoom webinars are designed to give you a short, sharp boost of creative inspiration from leading artists around the world. And it truly is around the world. For example, over the next few weeks, we're hosting artists live from Africa, the Philippines, India, and the US, to name a few. So you can get a really genuine taste for multicultural influences. Around halfway, we'll pause and I'll ask Paul to talk about his 2 to 3 hour workshop webinar event, an exclusive paid for event that's coming up very soon. So without further ado, let's get painting and go back to Paul. So, Paul, what are we going to be covering today?
Okay, John. So I thought I'd use this painting here
Yeah.
as the theme for today's workshop.
Yeah, great.
It's a very quick kind of plein air painting that I did, I think, at the beginning part of last year. So I've got a few photos and I've got that to work from. So I thought that might be quite a nice one for a three-quarters of an hour.
Yeah,
Um,
brilliant.
I've actually sort of sketched it out a little bit
Oh, you've cheated.
beforehand.
You've cheated.
I've cheated, but I'm going to sketch it live as well because I thought if I mess
Okay.
it up live, at least I've got the one that I did last night.
Yes, yes. Here's one I've
It's
done
the
before. Yes.
time pressure, three-quarters of an hour.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Uh, Oils I always find is a bit slower than perhaps watercolors, so tends
Yes.
to take me a little bit longer. Just
Yeah,
make
it's
sure
a
it's
bit more.
in
We like challenging our artists anyway, so
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
good.
I'm
Um,
more for painting quickly and live. Right, okay, so that's, as I say, that's the painting.
yeah.
And I'll go through how I tend to sketch out to start with.
Okay, perfect.
So
What
really,
are you
I
doing?
tend to sketch out just using paint if I can. Years ago, I used to use like pastel pencils and things like that. But I find that I quite like the surface of the painting very slightly damp. So I'm just mixing a little bit of uh, very watery, as it were, paint here. Because I've got the palette on an angle, it's running down a little bit. I've gone slightly bigger than the sketch I did on site. So this is 12 inches high, 16 inches wide.
Okay.
Um, right, so I think where I'd start is just getting some of the horizon in. I'm thinking it's probably about a quarter of the way down. So just using a flat brush, nice sort of sharp flat brush.
Now, Jane's asked, would this painting work in pastels and watercolour as well, do you think?
Well, I
Didn't
think you
have
can
oil.
kind of use any medium for anything, really. But it's the approach that's probably different. Pastels, I think, is very similar approach in a way to oils. I certainly approach pastels in a similar sort of way. And I paint in acrylics in the same sort of way too. But with watercolour, you're looking to build up transparent washes. So with watercolour, doing this sort of thing, these marks will all show. So they're not necessarily going to be, it might be better to do something like this in pencil if you're using watercolour. Well, certainly as a subject, you can use any subject. So that would be the horizon. I'm then thinking about where the jetty would be. So there's a very slight angle on that bit there. So I'm starting with that and then looking at where that then changes direction. That's about there. I quite like this little feature, the marker, which I think marks sort of where the groins are and things like that. So that can go in about there. Now, this is, being oils, this is possibly going to stay a bit wet. So you might need to just dry it off a little bit with, making that's too high, just bring that down a tiny bit. But what I do like about oils is this, that you can just make adjustments. You can wipe bits out very easily. Whereas if I'd drawn all this out carefully in pencil, there's not that opportunity to make those adjustments so easily. You end up sort of smearing the board or denting the canvas. I'm not a big fan of that. So I'm just kind of marking these verticals where they would be. There. I don't want them to quite end on the horizon, which they do on the photograph. But I think that's... Yeah, I think that wants to go a little bit lower, a tiny bit lower. So that can go to there. So I might be able to carry on with this one. This was the one that I did last night. So it's not masses of detail, but it's just enough to place the main shapes, the big elements. Oh dear. I don't know who's trying to ring me. Go away.
I know, always a problem when you're using a phone for these
things.
things.
Yeah. There's a limit to my amounts of technology, really. Right, so that's roughly the main sort of pillars that are holding this up. I probably will use the other one because I think I've made a slightly better job of the other one. But I'll show it. This at least shows you the process.
Exactly.
So,
I think other people may have been doing it along with you anyway. So
that's right. So that's kind of where the deck is, the top bit that we lie. And this bit is all in shadow. I've got another. So, just mixing a little bit of something else to sketch with. Come down to there. And there's actually another pillar on the corner of that photo there. And then the seashore. So it's basically kind of drawing top to bottom. I don't really need to draw the sun or the boat in. They can be all sketched in as we go. And the same with these cross member things that give it a bit of rigidity. That can all be sketched in once we're there. So I think the sea level will be there. A little bit of where the shadows would be. But that bit again could be sketched in later. So that really would be the drawing side of it.
Okay.
So I'll use the other one because it's just a very slight. It's not a lot in it, it's just like that. Right. Okay. And then what I tend to do then is work background to foreground if I can. Quite often I'll put I basically think about which colours are likely to get contaminated more than others. So in this case, the white of the sun. In my painting, it's come out a little bit darker than the photograph has. And I think I prefer it a little bit darker. So it's got a bit bleached out. So I'm going to make it a tiny bit darker. Obviously, I find that the going out and painting, you know, you've got a more reliable reference. With working from photographs, it just depends what the exposure of the camera was, and you know, and it makes quite a difference, really. So,
and what sort of paints are you mixing there then? What colours?
So I'm just thinking to get a sort of warmish, yellowy, pinky colour for the sky. I've got raw sienna here. I'm quite a fan of raw sienna, and this mix in this part is just a little bit of linseed oil and a little bit of solvent. And then this one is just solvent for kind of thinning the first layer or the sketch, and then washing brushes. So yeah, that was raw sienna, a tiny bit of alizarin crimson, which I've got on the side there, and then just a tiny bit of blue because I don't want it too bright. So particularly around here, you can see on this board, I've actually put colour on already. You can see it's sort of like a pale buff colour. The one that I did last night, I made it a very slightly lighter, which I think is probably more suitable for something like a sunrise where you want a lot of brightness. But I don't tend to work on white. I find the white quite a difficult colour to work on. So it tends to have some sort of colour on the board to start with. And then sometimes if a little bit of that peeps through at the end of the painting, that's not the end of the world. Whereas white is so bright, which I'm sure a lot of you know. So really just a bit of acrylic. So I'm just mixing a bit more of that because I haven't really got enough. A bit more of that. And that's slightly lighter, which is fine. I need it a bit darker for the other side though. Yeah, particularly in the corner, it's quite dark, and it's not a bad idea sometimes to have the corner slightly darker. It can keep your eye in the picture. And then I'll gradually lighten that up as I come in. So a bit more white. It's a little bit cold out here, so the paint's a little bit stiff.
Does it take longer to dry if it's in cold weather? Or
yeah, it does. Yeah. When I work in my conservatory, so in the winter there's no heating in here. Well, there's no heating anyway. So it's really gets cool in the winter, but then in the summer you just absolutely bake in here. And so in the summer they'll dry almost overnight. But in the winter, yeah, quite a while. So sometimes I'll bring them into the house. The other thing I do is sometimes use some fast drying oils as well mixed in. So I'm not doing that at the moment, but if it's something that I wanted to perhaps paint a layer of paint and then have that dry for the next day. Right, I'm just getting some this sort of blended in. I'm gradually trying to work towards a lighter bit in the middle. Let's just get another brush. Okay. So I'll just start with white here, and then I'm going to just add a tiny bit of yellow to soften that out. So this is, I think, I think it's winter yellow rather, which is quite a lemony yellow. It's quite a nice one. I've got a little bit of warmth in that area. This is the lovely thing about oils, is that they blend. I like colours that blend together. So when I'm working into wet paint, I just have to give my brush a little white because I might have picked a bit of the other colour up. And I can just sort of flip that into there. And soften that in there. I think I'll leave that bit for the time being. It might be that I can come back to that and soften that out. I'll work some of the watercolour now, the water. Important to make sure that we haven't left any gaps around here. So
Someone's commented on the constantly changing focus, and unfortunately, there are some phones, and we haven't quite
yeah,
worked out which ones, that they kind of focus on the person's hand rather than the painting. We can't
yeah,
really fathom that out. So unfortunately, you'll just have to live with it. We could keep it at the same focal distance if Paul wasn't painting, but the thing is, you kind of want him to paint. So
yeah. That's the problem, really. That's why I've kind of been reluctant to do. I've done one demo online. I do loads and loads of demos anyway. I've only done one online. That was really the reason, really, because my camera, particularly doing it on Zoom, I'm not sure it's too bad on other mediums.
Karen said that she thought she'd had one too many glasses of wine, which is
Yeah,
why
could paint
it's the
slower. No,
camera
yeah,
lens,
it is, isn't
Karen.
it?
Don't worry.
Do that. I think if I try to keep my hands at a low level, really, it's when I'm doing that in there that
Yes, it focuses on the arm. Yeah,
trying to keep it. So
I know.
I think I'll try and do that.
Holy Mission Impossible. Yes, can you hold your hand like this and your arm like this,
This
and
is it. Yeah,
contort your
I'm
body?
already headbutting it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm basically just cutting in anywhere where there's the water. Now this is really quite dark at the moment, but I quite like to start dark and then paint lighter tones and colours into that. And I'm going to spread that out fairly well so that there's not too much paint on the board. Otherwise, I won't be able to get more paint to stick.
Now, Susan's asked, what blue are you using there?
So it's a mixture of ultramarine, and then I've just muddied it up a bit with some raw sienna, I think a tiny bit of crimson. Yeah, I think my favourite colours are probably things like ultramarine, alizarin crimson, raw sienna, sometimes, and then the browns. So I tend to use a lot of those sort of colours. And I'm just lightening that up with a little bit of white. That's where one of the posts is going to be. I might have lost some of the others. There's one there. Talking about there. So this area is going to be quite light. So I'll slightly sharper. A bit more white in there. The brushes I use are quite a mixture. So this one's a synthetic one, a flat one, and also use a lot of Bristol brushes. So a whole range of different brushes. These flat ones are nice for anything a little bit architectural like this, where you've got lots of sharp edges. That's some of the blue on there, and I'll just lift a little bit of that out with a bit of rag so that I can go over in a minute with some lighter tones in that area. And then there's more to go under here. I'll paint quite a lot of things that are fairly local to me. So this is really, if I walk to the bottom of my road and then just along the beach a bit, this is one of the little jetties. I think I've had a painting that I did at the pier last year, and I couldn't get to the pier that morning because the tide was in. So I went to, had to go at this one instead. So this is really what they call a kind of blocking in stage. It's just getting some colour in each of the areas. I'm just losing track of my drawing a little bit. So this bit is mostly the light one, I think. Almost just sort of stain that area. then the light and the white can go over the top of that. And then just coming back here, to a slightly sharper brush. There. Yeah, I don't. That problem of the focus of the camera or the phone. I don't know if there's other. It'd be quite useful to know what other people use really, things like that.
Well, you can obviously get a normal digital camera and use that, but you need a connector so that the computer recognizes it as a webcam rather than.
Ah, really? Yeah.
So you can plug it into your.
Well, that's useful to know.
Yeah, I can send
We've
you
got various digital cameras.
Yeah. I could send you the link, and then you could use your laptop for the overhead, because then you could fix the focal length, and then it's
that would be quite good, wouldn't it? Yeah.
And the picture quality will be better as well.
Yeah. All right, let's get another brush. Right, let's see my brushes here.
I don't know about you lot at home, but when I'm looking at Paul working, I do feel a bit cold with that coated scarf he's got on. I kind of feel cold.
Just it's not that bad. I'll show you what I did looking at you.
So if any of you are at home, look at that.
That's why I'm looking cold. So I'll put the finishing touches to that. I started that yesterday. And worked.
Snow everywhere.
Yeah. So when it's snowy, I just love getting out and painting in the snow.
It's brilliant, isn't it?
I don't mind the cold. I like the clothes on. Right, I want to do bigger brush. So I've got 2 paintings on the go at the moment of the snow. They've been really exciting to paint.
Brilliant.
So I'm looking for a beach colour now. So I'm using raw sienna again. It's a colour I really find myself using a lot of. It's a nice kind of earthy yellow, but it's got a nice transparent quality to it.
Now, Victoria has said, when you block in colour, do you always begin background to foreground?
I generally do. I do it if I can, because things like when I come to put, say, these sort of posts in, I can slightly overlap the background then, if you see what I mean. If I've gone over with the blue, then I can then sort of overlap it that way. So and also if there's some very intricate details to go over the top, you'd end up just doing so much cutting in. So if I can, I'll work background to foreground, definitely.
Okay.
Right, let's get back to that. So again, just mixing it with a little bit of the medium, it just helps it to flow, and to me it just keeps a little bit of the richness in the colour. I don't know if you know about oil paints, but basically it's just ground up colour, pigment, and linseed oil. And the linseed oil is the sticky stuff that keeps it all together. And if you want to make it thinner, have a bit of linseed oil in your mix. If I just use the solvent, then it can break down the strength of the paint. So it's best to have a little bit of oil in. Right, I just want to get that. That's quite nice. So because raw sienna is quite a transparent colour, I'm seeing a little bit of the board. Wasn't intending to do that, but I quite like that. See a little bit of the board poking through. And that's a way I can get a slightly layered effect. Just going to add a little bit of crimson to that too. And again, I'm trying to keep the paint reasonably thin because there's quite a bit of paint that needs to go over the top of this. That's down to about there. So I actually need to bring my blue down a little bit more, I think. Sorry, I'm probably doing the focus on that. Right, and then this back bit is in shadow. So I'm going to add a little bit of blue to the mix and a little bit more crimson, make it a slightly purpley shadow. So ultramarine blue, Russian crimson, maybe a little bit of brown. I'm not quite sure what this brown is. Yeah, that gets me a nice shadowy colour. And again, I can sort of soften that in. There in a minute. Yeah, I normally paint it in easel, but I thought if I set it out like this, you can see the palette and the painting in one shot.
Thank you.
Right, okay. Right, now this blue just needs to come down a little bit lower. Oops, just clean the brush. I tend to keep quite a few brushes on the go so that I can just keep swapping them over, rather than clean them every time I change colour.
Yeah, we had a workshop with a New Zealand oil painter, John Crump, last week, and he said on one of his paintings he used 27 different brushes at the same
Yeah.
the work. It's crazy.
Yeah, when I did that sky landscape competition, I think I counted up at the end of the painting and there's well over 20 brushes. It's just so time consuming, keep cleaning them, keep drying them. So
Yes.
pick up another one. You can have lots of brushes, definitely.
And can you explain to Susan what's in the two pots you've got there?
Yeah, so this one is linseed oil and a little bit of solvent. And this one is just solvent. Okay. So this one's for cleaning brushes. Okay. And when I did that sketchy bit at the beginning, I did that. I used that.
Okay.
Just to make it like a really washy, runny mix. But that first sort of wash, let's go back to that. I mean, that's more or less dry now. But if it hadn't been dry, I could just blot it a little bit. But particularly on a warm day, that will just evaporate off, and it just leaves a little stain on there, so that I just know where I'm going to be working then.
Yeah.
I could also turn that into a tonal underpainting with very thin paint if I wanted, but I tend to just, sometimes I do that. Sometimes I will just go straight in with colour as I'm doing that. It rather depends on the subject, to be honest, what I'm painting. Some things need a lot more working out in drawing stage. I think I'll now start to work into the Jetty just a little bit, and then go back over the different areas and work into them a little bit. Right, okay. Let's see if we've got. It's the same brush as this one, but a bit newer and a bit better condition. Right, so this top surface is fairly light. I'll use that colour there that I've got. That's quite nice. So I actually need to make the sea quite a lot lighter there because it's tonally lighter than the bit of the decking here. Then the deck will then lighten up as I come further over. It's a nice thing about having a nice new brush, you get these lovely sharp lines where you need them. Perhaps a little bit pinker. On my palette, I quite often do this thing of just clip a strip of wood on, and that way I can take that off when I'm finished and just clean the whole palette down. A lot easier.
Lucy's asked, what colours are you using for the decking?
So it's a little bit of crimson, and the mix that I use for this shadow down the bottom here. So I'm basically just sort of combining that. So that had what are that? Crimson,
yeah.
raw sienna, a bit of the blue. Yeah. What I've used that, and that so far. Basically 4 colours and white so far. So it's mostly kind of mixes of that. It's gone a bit too pink now, so it's more. A little bit. And then if it goes too pink, add a little bit of blue, make it a little bit more lavendery. So it's very much pushing the colours around. I'll go into, when I do the longer workshop, I'll go into colour mixing a little bit. I think that's quite a good thing to cover. It's quite a light there. So again, just if I've got too dark, I'll just wipe the brush on a bit of rag and then add a bit of light to it.
Lucy Winter has just said, "Hi Paul, good to see you. We met at the Cambridge Plein Air in 2015.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Ah. Oh, that's lovely. The Cambridge Plein Air. That's great fun. Yeah, that's one of the things I enjoy doing, taking part in plein air competitions. Really good fun. And get to meet lots of, really interesting artists that way as well. Yeah. Actually, how I've learned quite a lot about painting and this kind of, you call this alla prima painting, really, where you're trying to paint in one layer. So a lot of plein air painting is painted in that way. You're just working it all up in one session. Right, so I'm looking for a dark now for the rest of this jetty. I think my drawing's gone a little bit off here. So I mixed, I've actually got a grey there, but I'm going to use brown and blue and a tiny bit of the crimson.
Oh, and Ellen has said she was in Cambridge too, standing next to you, Paul. There you go. So we've got a few people that
right
were there in Cambridge.
Yeah. So that was the year before last Cambridge. That's pretty,
And Ian's asked, can you explain thin or thick paint if other colour needs to go on top without blending?
Yeah. So these areas, well, I'm hoping I can get some paint on these in a minute. In fact, I might do the C before I do this. That'd be better.
Okay. Well, just to let you know, we're sort of at the halfway thing. So whenever you feel is an appropriate time to stop,
yeah,
is now a good time, or should?
Yeah, I think now's good. Yeah,
you answer that question first, and then
So thick painting over thin. Yeah. So basically, if I want to paint wet and wet, and I'll just demonstrate with a little bit of C, which I was going to go on to next.
Okay.
I've started a little bit dark, so I'm going to mix something a little bit lighter to go into that. So it's going to be very light here, but a little bit lighter, not so light there. Just a little bit of medium. Let's try that. Yeah, so I can paint into that. Some of that's blending. It depends how thick you want to paint. I don't necessarily paint that thick because I quite like the paint to be fairly fluid. I'm just going to get another brush. Oh, this would work quite well. So sometimes the long hair brushes are good for this. If you're painting sort of into wet paint. I can do that sort of thing. And it's picking up a little bit, but not too much. And I basically just keep going back into the mix and mixing whatever it's picked up into my mix there. But that way I don't get too harsh a look to it.
Yeah.
I don't know about thick. Let's try a bit of thick paint on. I mean, if I wanted to just go in with thicker paint, say just here, yeah, I mean, I can do. Yeah, that's working okay. Yeah. And because it's like a wet surface, the paint will flow more anyway.
Okay.
So that works. I think partly this is a nice sharp brush as well, so I'm getting sharp marks.
Brilliant. So why don't we just take a little bit of a pause there for a moment. How are you enjoying it? It's amazing how it started to take shape, and that the sunset. Actually, I'm feeling it's a real sort of dichotomy of feelings I'm going through, because I'm looking at Paul, feeling really cold, and then I'm looking at this beautiful sunset there, feeling nice and warm. So it's I don't quite know what to feel. So if you're watching on YouTube, I really appreciate you pressing the thumbs up button. This then ensures that YouTube recommends this class to more people, helping us to spread the benefits of creativity. So thank you very much. In addition to our free 45-minute arty classes on Tuesdays, we also host special 1-hour arty events on Thursdays, for which we charge a small fee to join live, or you can attend for free if you're one of our patrons. This Thursday, for example, we're hosting international watercolour heavyweight David Bellamy live from his home in England. I'd highly recommend joining us. But putting these arty classes to one side, the secret source of what we provide, and what I personally believe is the most effective way of elevating your art skills to the next level, is our full 2 to 3 hour workshop webinars. These events have restricted numbers, making them more exclusive and immersive. You also get to speak directly to the artist for guidance as you paint, which means you pick up a lot more of their tips and tricks. The price to attend is just £38 or $50, which works out at just over £12 or $17 an hour, so it is really great value. We'll be hosting Paul's full workshop next Tuesday on the 16th of February at 3:30 UK time, so 3:30 in the afternoon UK time. So Paul, what are you intending on covering at the longer workshop session?
Well, for the longer workshop, I thought I'd have a go at another sunset in this case. So this is a photo of the painting that I did a little while ago.
Oh wow, that looks amazing.
So I was thinking that would be quite a nice one to tackle. So this one's got a little bit more in it. Yeah. Things like the bow, there's the drawing of the bow and just making sure we get that right. There's quite a lot we can go into with sort of skies, because it's a lot more interesting sky. I
love how the light, you've got the light on the edge of the cloud there, just above the sun. It's lovely.
Yeah, and I love those sort of effects, that kind of backlit skies.
Yeah.
So things like that I'll be covering. This was another one of the sort of mud flats near where I live. So it's things like reflections, painting reflections, and I'll go into colour mixing as well. So, the colours I use and why I use those and how to mix those. Yeah. So that'll be the sort of thing that I'll be covering on that.
No, that looks really lovely, and I love that sunset. It's just fantastic, and it just goes to show you at home as well what more of an effect you can get with asking an artist to do it in 45 minutes, but give them 3 hours and they can really give something really amazing. So if you are interested in joining us, I'm pleased to say that we're going to be launching a hot ticket right now, and it's going to give you a whopping 20% off for the next hour. So that works out at about £10 an hour without the need for you to get in the car and travel to a live workshop. So from the comfort of your own home. So pretty amazing. So also, if you need to pick up any extra materials for that, we've now got a special deal with a great art supplier of all the top brands, where if you create a new account, you'll get 10% off those as well. Plus they ship internationally. So pretty good. So let me share my screen and I'll show you how you can go and do that. So first of all, you need to visit Shopkeep Arty, click on the upcoming events section, and then you scroll down and literally next week there's Paul's there. Click on the workshop button, and then if you scroll down, you can see the picture that he's just been showing you and the reference photo that you'll be sent on the email beforehand. That's the link there, Shop Art Materials, that you can click and it'll go through to Jackson's. And then if you go back up, if you're interested, you click on this link, book your webinar ticket or pre-order the video. It goes through to Paul's shop. And if you want to pre-order the video or if you want to book the live webinar, you click on for the video. There's two prices, a full video price, but also if you've attended the webinar, you get a big discount. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch the hot ticket. There we go, even the flame effect. And there is Paul on fire. So that's his hot ticket. That's what I need. And yeah, exactly. It really needs to be that. And so you can get either the live workshop or the workshop and the video included, both at 20% off, and it's going to be available for the next hour. And then once you have once we've got the video on there, it will come on our video library page, and you'll then be able to play the watch button on that. So hopefully that is helpful. Right, so let's get back to the second half
Okay.
and start adding a few more sort of darker and gradiated colours and those cross frames in the Jetty.
That's it. It's working into the working into the colours now.
Yeah.
All the colours pretty much blocked in. I'm not going to worry too much about the Jetty. I'll just do that almost in one here. I think because I've got the deck in, the rest is fairly solid. Right, so I'm going to get back to the sea and experiment a little bit with the brushes. Let's try that one. So there's going to be quite a bit of light going on that bit, so I'm not going to get too dark in there.
Now, Linda's asked, on your workshop, Paul, do you have to first sketch it out in pencil, would you say?
No. I don't use pencil. A little tiny brush, if you want to use a little brush, particularly things like the boat itself. But I'll go through all that, how I will go about drawing a boat, because in a way, getting that bit right is quite crucial.
Yeah.
For it working as a painting. So yeah, I should be able to just sort of do it all on the day. I just use pretty much the materials I'm using now, and I don't tend to use pencils. As I say, in the past I've used a pastel pencil a little bit, but I find that paint's fine. You can sketch with paint, you can rub it out very easily, and it also helps to build your confidence in using paint. Probably a personal thing, but then right, so I'm just working into these lighter areas. Not sure about that, but let's go back to this brush and a slightly thicker mix, because I think that actually worked better thicker. Yeah.
So Susan commented, it's interesting to see how you, Paul, use your palette and mix your colours. So she's found that quite interesting.
All right, good. Yeah.
And Helen said, enjoying this as haven't used oils before. So that's Helen from Beverley. And Linda, oil is new for her too. Very interesting. Great picture. Thank you. So
good. I love oils.
To have a few people that are trying it for the first time on this one, which is great.
Good. That's really good. If I can get people interested in oils, I'd be really pleased.
Yeah.
I've painted with oils all my life. I've got my first set when I was about 10 years old.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm nearly 60 now, so it's just been such a lovely medium. I think it's so forgiving, it's so flexible, and I think if you can get over the fact of that, it can be a little bit tricky working wet paint into wet paint and things like that, and just getting a feel for it. You can end up in a bit of a mess, I must admit.
Now, what are you actually painting on here? Because Linda's asked what thickness of paper, but sometimes you don't necessarily have to use paper, do you?
No, what I use is, this is what I'm using. It's board, MDF board.
Hold on a sec, I'll just show that. There you go.
So I'd get this from the woodyard and just cut it up.
Okay.
And then I put gesso primer on it.
So it's just acrylic. A piece of wood board, basically.
Yeah, just a bit of board. Hardboard would do, or plywood, anything really.
Yeah, your kitchen door, your kitchen cupboard, whatever you want to do, Linda.
Back of a cupboard door or something.
Yeah.
Even cardboard. I've started. This is scraps of mount board. You could use things like that. For sketches, I've been using bits of cardboard. Just because I end up with so much, it's a job storing them sometimes. You could prime up paper as well. Paper might cockle more. So it's nice having something that's a little bit rigid.
Yeah.
This is where actually having a nice long-haired brush can be quite good for these sort of things. I'm just kind of working a little bit of that stay in there. Let's just go a bit darker there.
I guess the thing with because a lot of our painters are probably watercolorists, and I guess the issue you have as a watercolorist when you're going wet on wet or whatever is that the paper starts to cockle a little bit.
Yeah.
But with oils, you don't have any of that issue because you're painting really hard substances.
Yeah. You can basically just build it up one mark at a time. That's what I like about it. You just sort of adding marks.
Yeah. Now, Karen says she's seen oil painting paper in art shops. Would you recommend it?
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah. The other thing I'll say about oils is there's also water mixable oils, which
Okay.
to my mind aren't quite as fluid, but I do use them as well, particularly indoors. They're really good if you don't like the smell of solvents. And the other thing is I use a low odor solvent because I get a bit headachy if I have something with a lot of smell to it. So I could probably do more to the sea, but I'm going to leave it at that, I think. Actually, I'll put the highlights down the middle in.
Okay. And Susan said, what do you prime your board? And if so, what do you prime it with?
So I use acrylic gesso.
Okay.
The one I've got, it's not, well, that's a primer, but it's like a litre pot from Jackson's, I get. But there's other makes as well. Dale Rani will do it, and Winsor & Newton, and Great Art will do their one as well. So yeah, a gesso primer is really, nowadays, it's really just an acrylic primer with a little bit of texture in. But it just helps to, that little bit of tooth will help to just grip the paint, particularly on a smooth board.
Yeah.
You can also buy a painting board or a painting canvas. They're fine as well. But if you didn't want to spend too much on materials in terms of boards, right? So I just want to put some. I'm going to go for a smaller brush. So I'm looking at these little bits of highlight and reflection on the sea. So this layer, I'm going to blend this in slightly with the blue. And I'll go in a little bit lighter still.
Now, Victoria's asked, do you find mixing oils easier on a metal palette instead of a paper disposable tear sheets, etc.?
This is actually wood, this one. Okay. It's just got a bit grubby over the years. The disposable sheets are fine. And I was almost going to use one of those, but it was a bit small and it had a tear in it. I paint outside a lot.
Disciplined that you clean it up before it dries or whatever, I guess.
Yeah, you do have to clean it up. But again, that's literally scrape with a knife and wipe with a bit of rag.
Yeah.
This bit I unclip. It's just clipped on. So I can take the paint off, any usable paint, I'll just leave that to one side, clean the board down, then I can put it back on again. So yeah. That's how I tend to do it. But yeah, the disposable ones are really good as well. I do use those as well, particularly indoors or in the studio. I've been painting out in the snow today and yesterday, and this was completely covered in snow yesterday. So it was paper would just dissolve. So yeah. For those sort of reasons, I use this one quite a lot. Yeah. And I've also
Trina said, I'm really enjoying this class. I don't work with oils, but if you keep bringing in oil painters, I may have to give it a go. Oils are so lovely. You should. So, and we've made a bit of an effort recently, Trina, to actually go and find a few more oil, because we were being very, very heavily watercolour, and we still are. Obviously, we've got David Bellamy this Thursday, etc. Yeah. But we want to just try and balance up a few new mixed media, because I think we feel that actually you can pick up a lot of skills that are complementary to the media that you're used to anyway, and you might look at it in a slightly different way anyway, so it might improve your watercolour if that's the one that you normally do anyway. So I think just experiencing new media is always beneficial.
I think you just got to work out what suits you and what you enjoy. Some of my students just use oils, some just use acrylics, some just use watercolours, and then others will use a bit of everything, really. They'll go from one medium to another.
Yeah.
I use watercolours a little bit for sketching, and also use pens for sketching. And then the acrylics I tend to use probably sketching and teaching, really, more than anything.
Yeah.
Right. I think I'll leave the sea at that. How are we doing? We all right for a bit?
Yeah, I think we're kind of coming up to time. Susan said, "I like the idea of a strip on the side of your palette for your paint." So that sounds like a good idea.
That was a little bit of Venetian blind. That was.
And
right,
Susan said, a long time ago, I used to cover the board with butter muslin, giving a texture a bit like canvas.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, I've tried that once. I think it's fine. It was just a bit of a faff doing
Yeah.
it. I think it is. It does give quite a nice texture. And I was painting. So the little painting I showed you was on board, on this kind of board, and the other painting I'm doing is a bigger one on a canvas. And it's quite nice working on a canvas for a change because I've not worked on canvas for a little while. So sometimes having a bit of a texture underneath is quite nice. This is actually for demos when I'm doing things like this, because it's a smooth surface, the paint almost feels like it goes on quicker and easier.
Yeah.
I'm just very quickly blocking this pier in, just so you can get a bit of an idea of what it would look like. So it's picked a little bit of the colour up there, but I'm not too worried really. I think there's a post there. I've lost track of my drawing a little bit there. I'll just try and get a little bit of most of the features in.
Yeah, it brings it out more, doesn't it? With the
yeah, just so you've got a bit. I may not get this finished.
No, that's okay. I'm not holding you to it.
Yeah. You just get a bit of an idea of the process.
While you continue with that, I'll just sort of round up at the end.
Yeah.
And
okay.
I'll come back to you a bit later.
Yeah.
So, how did you get on? It sounds like a lot of you different levels. I've had a comment from Fiona as well, saying that oils are her first choice. So, really great to see an oil painting session. We've had quite a few, so look out for those. And there's some more coming up, including an acrylic professional in a week or so's time, Derek van Rensburg from South Africa, who looks really great. So, I'd highly recommend that too. So, both Paul and I would love to see what you've come up with and created in this class. I've created a post relating to this arty class on Facebook where you can share a photo of your painting. Simply search for Shopkeep Arty on Facebook, or if you're watching on YouTube, click the link in the description below and that will go straight through to that particular post. It's always really great to see how you and others approach the same reference with your art. On top of that, I'm sure that Paul will be willing to share a few pointers about your post, so you'll also benefit from a mini critique as well. So can't be bad, especially since this is all free. In return, I ask just one favour of you at home. After you've shared your painting on Facebook, please can you click the link to visit the class details page on our website, then scroll down to the bottom and leave some feedback about this class for the artist and also others in the future as well. We've just started collecting this feedback, and literally today, in the hope that it can benefit others in the future when making a decision to watch the video. So that would be really great. As we near the end, if you've got any words of thanks for Paul, now's your chance to type it in the Q&A for me, so that I can read it to him in a few minutes. In the meantime, I've mentioned previously our patrons. Being a patron is the best way not only to save money on workshop webinars or video purchases, but you also help support our channel through your small monthly contribution. This week I've got some new patrons to welcome into our exclusive arty community, so let me press the other button behind me, the button of thanks, to say thank you to Alexandra Hawkins, Annette, Fiona Leopard, Jane Barnfield, Daniel Colling, Louise Dubois and Laurie Griffin. Thank you so much, everybody, for helping to support our channel. That's much appreciated, and I know you'll join our community, enjoy our community as well. We have some great little Q&A sessions, so you'll be all part of that and receive those invites. So it's the end of another great arty class. If you do want to join Paul and I for the full workshop event, don't forget to head over to our website now and take advantage of the hot ticket that'll expire in about an hour. So before I go, some comments from attendees. So Trina, thank you so much. Anne, I have to learn how to use oils without making such a mess and getting paint everywhere. Enjoying learning how to use them. Oh, hang on a minute. I'll come to you, Paul. I'm showing me. I want to show you.
Okay.
Trina, the painting is lovely. Lucy, Paul, thank you so much for the demo. Helen, thanks a lot. Very informative. Love the mixing techniques. Trina, Yay, new patrons. Anna, a wonderful workshop. Thank you. Lovely colours. Susan, thank you, Paul, for a great workshop. And Shopkeep Arty for the organisation. No problem. Linda, like the freshness of it. Good to have a go at oils. Enjoyed it. Eleanor, thank you, Paul. Great to see you again and to be able to follow your working. I wonder if you'll be at Paint Out Norfolk this year.
I will. This year I will. Yeah.
Brilliant. Adrian, excellent way to get access to some key points such as colour mixing, choice and preparation of the board, working in one layer. Many thanks. Weather, wonderful presentation, John. Weather from Florida. Victoria, hi Paul. So great to be part of your classes. Keep it up. Thanks from Vicky Stacey, an in-person student. Oh, there we go.
Oh yeah.
Janet.
Hi Vicky.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate that for many years I've been one of Paul's students. Thank you for a great demo, Paul. Well up to standard. I've really enjoyed it. That's Janet Green. Patricia, thank you. Have not used oil for years and will now use them again. Really enjoyed it. Susan, I loved watching a local artist work. That's Susan Waymark. Ian Clement, thank you, Paul. Some great tips and info. Best regards. Eureka, thanks for an interesting workshop. Just wish that chat wasn't disabled, as I can put the chat box next to the workshop image, but the Q&A covers up the image. The reason we have Q&A, Eureka, is because I can then organise how I answer things, whereas the chat, it just kind of gets lost in the nether regions. So that's why we do it, and we've researched it quite closely. But anyway, I won't get into the technical ins and outs. Maureen, very fun and informative at the same time. His pace was perfect. Used acrylics as I did not have oil paints and usually use watercolours. Like the texture and thicker paint for a change. Thank you so much. Beverly, thank you so much. Being an oil painter, I love this. Great. Valerie, thanks, Paul. Lovely to get the oil paints out again. Jennifer, can I just ask if Paul has ever used water-soluble oils?
Yeah, and they're fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
great. So, fantastic. Some great feedback. Thank you, everyone. And
good.
I can tell you really enjoyed it, and I'm really, really glad you did. So, I'm now off to go and get ready for a 2 to 3 hour acrylic and pastel workshop with Robert Dutton up near the lakes. So if you're joining me for that, I'll see you very soon. If not, thank you for taking part, and I hope I'll be seeing you at David Bellamy's watercolour Arty class special this Thursday. We're going to be painting a stunning watercolour mountain scene, so it should be really great, and he always captures the sky so well. So thank you for joining us. It's goodbye from me, and obviously goodbye and thank you so much to Paul.
Thank you, everybody.
Massive. I'll show the painting to finish. Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.